Give Quannah another round of applause. Yeah. Quannah, thank you so much for joining us here at Res. We're so excited to have you here and just have a chance to chat, talk about your career. Many people likely only think of the glitz and glamour of modeling, right? But it's also serious business and takes a serious entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of business skills you need to be a successful model?
Yeah, I also just want to quickly say...
Yeah, introduce yourself. My apologies.
No, it's all good. Masit Cho, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'm so glad that I was able to make this work with my busy schedule, but yeah, straight to it. I think what's really important, and a lot of people don't really recognize or acknowledge that, you know, being a model or being in the industry, whether it be acting, music, modeling, it can be very taxing on our well-being, on our mental health, on how we view ourselves, our self-esteem. And, you know, I think something that really helps me is staying grounded and, you know, coming and doing stuff like this, being in community with one another. And I think, you know, in order to be successful as a model, it takes a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of moments where I've had to sacrifice certain things, like my own birthday this year. Like, I have a job that I have to do, and I can't even celebrate my 20th birthday. But, you know, stuff like that, being able to make sacrifices and just recognizing that you have to be good with working with a bunch of people, you know, from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and working with a team, finding your team and sticking with them. And, you know, I'm lucky enough to have an incredible team with IMG Models. They have 100% supported everything that I wanted to do, everything I have done, and just really making sure that my voice is also being recognized in these spaces. So
that's awesome. It's such good advice about teamwork. I think the businesses out there and tribal leaders, you know, how important it is to establish that team, and it makes you better for everything you do.
Exactly.
So you've had a pretty quick rise to success, right? Is it a little, you know, it came pretty quick over the past few years. How's it been life-changing for your success? And tell me a little bit about how you got started and where you are now. Yeah,
so basically how I even started modeling was doing advocacy work. So before I entered into any space where I was being seen for my image, I was being noticed for my voice. And I think that's something that you know, that's my passion. That's something I'm very passionate about. Modeling is my job and I love modeling, but advocacy is my passion. And showing up, doing the work in any space that I am, whether it be modeling or conventions or being able to speak, it's just, you know, sharing knowledge and uplifting my people and making sure that we are being recognized in the best way possible and breaking those barriers, breaking those stereotypes. It can be, like I said, taxing on, you know, my mental health and my well-being, but at the end of the day, you know, it truly is an honor and a blessing to be in this position. And it happened very quickly. And, you know, being, you know, what people call me an activist, but you know, I always say that I prefer to be called a protector, whether it be climate or the land or the water or animals or whatever it may be. It's what drives me, and it makes me want to continue the path that I'm on. And for that reasoning is, you know, anyone can be an activist for anything, and that's beautiful, and we need that. That's something we want to encourage and uplift. But as an Indigenous person, I think it's more deeper than that. It's not just that we believe in something, it's that this is our life. We are protecting our way of life. We are protecting what's left of our culture, our traditions, and what makes us, you know, sovereign as a whole. And I think it's so important to stay grounded, you know, whether it's in modeling spaces or even in academics, you know. So yeah.
That's great. So you definitely have a unique insight in our Native American community. We talked a little bit about this backstage. You were born on a Navajo reservation in Arizona. Your parents are Alaska Native and Oglala Lakota, raised in Alaska. How have you been able to incorporate those elements of all of that into what you do now?
Yeah, I think, you know, being a model, and this is something new, I think that the modeling industry and every industry is getting used to, is that a lot of models that are people of color or BIPOC, you know, within that community, it's harder for brands and clients to want to change our image, because a lot of the time they want a model that they can change your look. They want you to be able to be a blank canvas for them to play with. But for me, I am very much a person of, you know, if you want to work with me, you have to work with all of me, and that includes my tattoos. That includes, you know, you cannot cut or dye my hair, stuff like that, you know, staying strong with that, because that's how people respect you. They realize, okay, this person, this is how they want to be seen. And I think staying strong with who you are, whether it be your identity as an Indigenous person or just who you are as just a regular person on a day-to-day life, you know. But, you know, being in these spaces, I think is really good for not just me to be able to do the work in these spaces and break those barriers and educate and shine a light a little bit with a audience that wouldn't be having these conversations. And that's the thing that I'm very blessed to be a part of, is opening these conversations in spaces where people wouldn't be talking about these issues, let alone even recognizing or acknowledging them. So yeah.
And you just recently, one of our great partners is Unity, so you just recently spoke at the Unity conference. Yeah, let's... you also was a keynote at a graduation. Could you just tell us a little bit about that youth connection?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to find a balance. For me especially, you know, I get so consumed by this modeling industry. You know, my schedule's all over the place. For instance, I didn't even know I was going to be here until yesterday because how crazy my schedule is. So it's really hard for me to plan things ahead, and to be able to, you know, like I said, have a really good team that you can tell them what you want and they'll make it happen. And for me to be able to have a team that's like, okay, you know, if this is something you really want to do, we'll make it happen, you know, no matter how crazy my schedule is. And so I'll tell them, you know, in advance, I really want to do this. I really want to show up for my community. And they always, of course, agree and they support it. And they always find a way to, if I, like, for instance, the reason why I didn't know I was going to be here is because I had a shoot, a really big photo shoot. And I told them that I really wanted to be here and that it was really important to me. And so they were able to reschedule the shoot. And so just having, you know, a strong say in what you want to do is really important. But I think, you know, as a youth and being so young, it's so important to show up for my own people in that way, because especially young people, me being so young, you know, just showing up and showing each other, you know, that we can support each other, we can uplift each other, we can, you know, we are welcome in every space, whether we may not feel like it or not. Like, we belong in these spaces, in every space, whether it be modeling, acting, music, academia, like every space we belong. And to never feel, you know, like you're alone, because at the end of the day, something that really keeps me strong in every space is knowing that my ancestors are with me. And you know, I feel like a lot of people read an article or a few articles. Not, you know, there's always bad press out there, but you know, there was this article that came out last year about my first Met Gala experience, and it kind of talked about, you know, me feeling lonely, and that is a very real thing. But you know, it kind of went out of context a little bit, but really my message was that, you know, there's not enough Indigenous people in these spaces, yet this is our land, and we're still here, and we occupy these lands, and that, it's really important to shine a light on not just that we're here, but, you know, there's so many parts of us, you know, that deserve to be in those spaces. And there's so many beautiful Native designers like I'm wearing today, models. There's so many beautiful people that could easily be in these spaces, but we just haven't had the opportunity or the chance to show up. And yeah, so, you know, that whole thing was really about, you know, just feeling alone, but also what made me walk in there with pride was just knowing that, well, as I was walking on that red carpet, you know, I started to feel lonely, and then I instantly started thinking about all my ancestors, what they went through for me to be here today, and all the sacrifices and all of the hardships that our people faced, and we're still here, and I'm on this carpet, and I'm representing that, and to reclaim my power, because I felt my power was being drained, you know, from me, and to reclaim that and walk in pride is really important.
It's amazing. You've talked a little bit about activism, you know, and I think a couple of what you've mentioned that are really strong points, and especially, you know, for business owners and entrepreneurs is you know, sometimes you're the only one in the room that might be indigenous or might be a Native business owner. And that's really important. Even in Washington, D.C., a lot of times that happens. But I do want to go back to activism a little bit. Is it difficult to be an activist in your modeling career? Do you find that balance of, you mentioned it a little bit, of being how you are you, but how are you an activist around other causes that you want to promote?
Yeah, so I think with now I have a larger platform, but before it was just building relationships in those spaces. I think, you know, one thing I always say is the statistics are out there, the science is out there, and it's easily accessible. But what is missing is the experience. What people don't recognize is that, oh, we know the statistics, we know the facts. But it's hard to get through to someone without a personal experience or a story to tell. And so it can be hard to find balance. And it can be hard to, you know, feel like I'm being seen or heard in those spaces. But I think it's really important, you know, to be able to work with clients and with brands and designers or whoever that share the same values, are inspired by your values, because, you know, that's what creates change. And I think, you know, now that I established a better, or like a more, let me say this, my career is more established now than it was, like, obviously a year ago. I'm now in a space, or in a place, where I can tell clients or tell my agents yes or no to certain things, or I could tell them, I really want to do this job, but if they want to work with me, there's some things that need to change. And I have had to have tough conversations with brands and clients where, you know, they're not sustainable, and they've had cultural appropriation issues in the past, and, you know, they want to work with me, and I tell them, well, here's the thing. This is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, and here's how we can fix that, and here's how you can collaborate, and here's how you can work with us to be a part of the change. And that's something I'm really proud of, and I can't really disclose who or what I've done that with so far, because it hasn't really come out, but I'm very proud to say that there has been a lot of changes since. And I guess there is one example. There's this brand called Macaj that I recently did a campaign for, and they were pretty sustainable before, but they weren't fully at a place where I felt they needed to be. And they reached out to me, and they wanted to work with me because I'd worked with them in the past, and they were like, we're really, really and truly inspired by your work and how strong you stand with that and your message. And so they created a 100% recycled and upcycled clothing line. I was the face of their campaign, And not only did they do that, but they also allowed me to bring my own indigenous jewelry and represent that. And just being able to, like I said, work with clients that want to do better, that want to be a part of the change and be a part of the movement is so important. And to be able to represent my people, not just with my face, but with our art, with our jewelry, with that beauty outside of my look, it's an honor. And that's a whole respect dynamic within the industry, you know? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I always ask the audience to create goals the first couple of days. I know you probably have a lot of goals. What's your process on how you do goal setting?
Yeah.
What are some of the things how do you get to that part, that process?
Yeah. Honestly, I think what really, like I said this before, is what really, really drives me is my culture, my traditions, and being raised out on the land. You know, my mom raised me and my brothers as a single parent, and she took us hunting. That's how we lived, completely off the land, and she still to this day does. So when I'm in these spaces, when I'm out working in big cities, she's back home hunting, fishing, dog mushing, because she lives way out in the bush of Alaska. And so, you know, staying grounded and having, grown up knowing my values and living my values, I bring that into every space that I'm in. And I think goal setting is really important because, me being young, I have all of these goals that I want to do, but it always comes back to community. I always want to find a way to give back to my community. And another thing too, with that Makaj campaign that I was just talking about, I got them to donate a pretty big chunk of money to a Native nonprofit organization. So to be able to set goals and also, like I said, let your team know what your goals are. You really need to have communication in every single space, in every relationship, in every friendship. Everyone knows that communication is key. And to be able to even just like put it out into the universe, let Creator know that this is your goal and this is what you want, and to be strong with that and be dedicated with it, because it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to be like, okay, this is hard. I don't feel like doing this. There were many moments where I just wanted to stop and quit, but one thing is just to reflect, self-reflect and, do a lot of critical thinking on, okay, but how can I get there? And, do the research, but also reach out to people. It's okay to reach out to people and do what you can. And being so young and having all of these goals, I have a ton that I exactly don't want to talk about yet because they're already in the works, but it's really exciting too to be able to have a platform and to be able to have a team and people that you surround yourself with that support that and want to be a part of that. You want to be able to surround yourself with like minds that want to uplift that work. So yeah.
That's great. And what's next for you? What's next on the horizon?
There are a couple of campaigns that I am under NDA, but
all right. Well, don't say anything.
Yeah. But there are a few things that I can share. So I have been working on this film for 3 years. It is called Walking Two Worlds. It's basically my story, but in the beginning, it was all about advocacy. So when I was doing a bunch of my advocacy work before modeling, because my modeling career only started barely over a year ago. Yeah, a little over a year ago now. And so we've been filming this for 3 years. So it was way before any modeling even came up. And it was just about advocacy work. It's about the movement. It's about community. It's about relationships to the land and the beauty of, staying connected and beyond. So it shows my growth through the last couple years. And I'm really, really excited about this because I was really, really nervous. And this is a film I'm very vulnerable in. I show a part of myself that a lot of people don't see. And they see a lot of my humanness come out. But it shows kind of like trying to balance the two worlds. That's why it's called Walking Two Worlds, because in the beginning it was all my advocacy work and being out on the land and being a part of the community. And then my modeling career got picked up. And so it kind of goes into my modeling career and then continue to do the work within those spaces. And so I'm really excited. And there's a part in there that I always share is, you know, the reason why it's called Walking Two Worlds is because, one, I'm in a world where I'm, you know, constantly going and going and going. There's this fast-paced, high fashion, demanding world that I'm not used to, but I'm still adjusting to. And then there's the world I'm comfortable in, you know, my culture, my traditions, my way of life, and staying connected to that. And so trying to balance the two, I talk a lot about that. And there's a lot of clips in there that show my vulnerability. And yeah, so it's really cool. There's this one clip where I'm doing an interview and I'm talking about, you know, how next thing you know, like I'm in, like I said before, I'm in these spaces, I'm in big cities, but then when I go home to, you know, the woods, I go home to dog mushing, I go home to traditional foods, to our songs, to our people, and to my culture. And so trying to find a balance with that. So yeah, that's the next thing. It's premiering in Tribeca Film Festival, which I'm really excited about. It's about 30 minutes long, and it is in collaboration with the North Face. So I've been working with the North Face for a few years, and this is their first film that is not around sport. And I'm very honored to be able to be their first film that's about advocacy, that's about the land, because I think, you know, working with outdoor industry brands is really important too, because they're the outdoor industry. They work with athletes that are constantly outdoors. And so this film is a whole different perspective on the outdoors, because all their other films are just following athletes hiking or skiing, which is amazing and fun to watch, but this film goes deeper beyond just, you know, beyond that. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing. We're looking forward to seeing that premiere, and you know, we'll definitely be promoting it on our networks. So you're truly a trailblazer. I am amazed at almost everything you're saying, and I even hate to even ask this question because you've given everybody so much advice already. But my last question is, you know, we have a lot of folks in the audience that may be going through some very similar, or maybe feeling like, oh, you know, how do I walk in two worlds, or, you know, how do I work in the business community and focus on my traditional values in my home? What is your advice, some of your advice to the audience, and any lasting parting words to them?
Yeah, you know, and I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but truly staying grounded and finding moments to realign and reconnect. And, you know, one thing that my mom has always taught me, and something that I carry with me in every space I go into, and I repeat to myself when I truly need it, or I'll even call my mom to have her tell me it, you know, when I really need to hear it, is never forget who you are and where you come from. It's so easy to get distracted in such a capitalistic world or whatever, you know, it's so easy to kind of lose sight of your values, because this society, this world wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for us to succeed. It's not made for people of color, you know, and for us to, and for me, you know, to be able to be in the place where I am, it's a blessing and an honor beyond that too. And, you know, just be proud of your bloodlines. Never be ashamed of that. I used to really not exactly be ashamed, but I had self-esteem issues even when I started modeling, because, you know, being one of the only ones in those spaces and thinking, you know, why this, why that, constantly questioning myself, but taking a moment to recognize that not only do our people, you know, we have come so far, we have been through so much for generations, and you know, it's so easy to focus on the hardships. It's so easy to lose track and lose sight of the good things. But to remind yourself that we also come from so much power. There's so much power in our bloodlines. We are such powerful people, and I think it's easy to forget that because there's so much trauma and so much hurt that our people go through when it comes to losing our land, you know, the MMIW epidemic and beyond, you know, climate justice. There's so much hardships that our people face today, and it's so easy to feel so small, but to remind yourself that we all carry a strong bloodline and that we're still here and we're here for a reason, and our ancestors sacrificed so much for us to be here, and to be proud of that and never walk in shame.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you being here at the Reservation Economics Summit 2022. I look forward to watching your career bud. I'm sure everybody does. So I want everybody to give a round of a standing ovation.
Thank you so much. Merci. Thank you, everyone.